Now, where is it that you've come from today to attend this year's conference?
Well, it's a good question because I just moved.
Oh,
I used to live in Phoenix, Arizona,
yeah.
where I had lived for 22 years. And then my husband retired at the end of 2010. And our only daughter, our baby, lives in Nashville, Tennessee.
Oh.
She has a classic rock band there, Phoenix
Great.
Rising, so you can Google on Phoenix Rising. And she loves Nashville. It's Music City. They have this a fan base. They play every weekend. So she's not going anywhere. And we decided it's time. So in spring of this year, we moved to Nashville, Tennessee. So here I'm coming to Vancouver, and I think, well, that's easy. Just, you know, from Phoenix, it's a single hop, boom, same time zone. But from Nashville, oh my. It was different time zones. I took 2 different airlines. It was easier and cheaper.
Yeah.
So it took me all day, basically. And I was a little jet lagged and kind of out of it. So from Nashville, Tennessee,
Yeah.
all the way to Vancouver.
Perfect. And can you tell me your story? How or why did you get into Agile?
I discovered Agile on my own in the mid-90s. I was working for a medium-sized telecom, and there were some struggles because it was based around a very large legacy system, a large switch. And they could see from the data that the switch was dying. So they had a lot of what they call new ventures, little experimental projects, hoping that 1 or 2 of them would take off. And they were trying to run those small new ventures the same way they had run the switch, which was about 8 million lines of code, so big that no single developer could compile. You had to have a committee of people to integrate. So it was enormous. Naturally, the process that you would use for that would be very different from these little small, they were almost like little startups. And it wasn't working out. So they said there must be a better way to run these little projects. And I was in kind of an R&D department within the company. And I just started looking around, and I found Ken Schwaber's interesting site called controlchaos.com. It is still there. And I started reading about Scrum, and I thought, well, maybe this could work. So I put together a little presentation, and I started talking to these little teams, and they loved it. And it worked well for us. We started doing it with little pieces of the switch, not the development part, but we did some testing experiments. And I wrote one of the earliest articles about Agile. It was printed in IEEE software in the mid-90s about exactly what I told you and how we used it for small teams and for testing on the switch. And I think it's still referenced today as sort of a classic, you know, because it was so early. It was before anybody had a book out about XP or Scrum, or so it was pre the Agile time, I guess.
Great.
Wow.
And why did you choose the topic you did to speak on at this year's conference?
Because Eugene said, hey, Linda, I hear that you gave this great talk at the Agile Conference in Salt Lake City. Everybody's talking about it. I mean, I don't know whether they really were or not, but that's what he said. He said, we want that talk here.
No.
And so he said, you've got to have a keynote. And then he told me the story about Mary, and I thought, oh no, I can't believe that. So I said, fine. I added more things to it because the response after the Agile Conference in Salt Lake City was overwhelming. I was just, I don't know, I'm tearing up, moved by the enormous response. People just got so excited about that information for whatever reason, because they have children, because they themselves feel stuck, and they said, this is something I can do now. I realize I have this. I hadn't expected that. So on the basis of all the email, because the Agile talk was only an hour, I sort of added some things, changed some things to do the hour and a half this morning.
Yeah. No, I thought it went very well.
Thank you.
Very impressive.
Thank you.
And one of the themes of this year's conference is hunting agile elephants. Can you give me an example of an elephant that you've found to challenge an organization?
I deal with elephants all the time. So when he said elephants, I said, you know, Eugene, that's all I talk about are the elephants. These are the things nobody wants to talk about.
That's right.
One of the things Agile has brought to the table that has made a huge difference in software development is that it's okay now if we talk about the people and how they are and how their brains work, when before you would never have had a technical conference with, look at the topics that are here, about communication, about better ways for teams to work. It would all have been tools, languages, very technical things. That's just the way it was.
Yeah.
So 10 years ago, when the Agile Manifesto began talking about values, we never talked about values. We never talked about what you believe. What do you believe is important? So now, all of a sudden, those things that I call them the dead horses that were on the dining room table, now we're starting to talk about it. It's not true everywhere, but yeah, we can talk about it. And how your brain works in a funny way sometimes, and so does mine. And the better we understand how that is, the better we're able to do our jobs. Yeah.
Great. And can you tell me a success story where you've seen an organization overcome an elephant in the room?
Wow. I don't know. I have a lot. Let me see. Okay. So in the beginning, in the mid-90s, I'm talking to teams about Scrum. And I usually didn't advertise within the company. It just word of mouth. Somebody would say, hey, you talked to the XYZ team. Would you come in and talk to us? So I did. My real job was doing retrospectives and trying to help people use design patterns. So I was doing a retrospective at one point, and this was a team that was so discouraged, and they weren't making progress. It was a team that had had a succession of managers. Nobody wanted them. So managers kept dumping them, saying, oh, I really have too many things on my plate now. Here, Fred, you take this team. And they knew, the team knew, that nobody wanted them, and they weren't getting anywhere. The requirements for the thing they were working on, they didn't know what to do. So we were doing this retrospective, and it was so moving to talk to those guys, because they were just, crying in their beer. We don't know what to do, and and nobody wants us. Nobody wants us. I said, man, in a retrospective, you're not supposed to solve their problems. Your job as an external facilitator, even within the same company, is just to pay attention to what happened, and they solve the problems. And at one point in the retrospective, one of the guys said, Linda, can't you help us? I said, well, okay, don't tell me. So I said, I'm going to go get my presentation about Scrum, because I think that could help. So I gave them my little short introduction to Scrum. They heard it, and they said, oh, this is going to work. Just for starters, you got this daily meeting. We're not doing any daily meeting. I said, look, you just try it. If it doesn't work, you're already in trouble. Why not give it a try?
What you got to lose?
That's right. So their manager was about ready to go on vacation. He had just inherited them, basically. And he said, fine, go ahead, do it, and I'll see you in a month. So we started, we had our first stand-up. Go around the table. Do you know what the daily stand-up is? Okay. Here's the first guy. He said, well, here, what I did yesterday. So I have been working on trying to get this database problem solved for a month. So I can't find anybody to help me. I don't know where to go. And he said, so all I did yesterday was spin my wheels. I talked to so-and-so and this guy, and nobody knows even where to go with this. And here's another guy on the other side of the table who said, I didn't know you were working on that. He said, well, I did that database thing for the other project XYZ over here. And he said, I'll come over after the meeting and I'll help you with that. So you could tell, it was like, ooh, ooh. Next guys. Well, I've been trying to put this library together for the blah, blah, blah. And he didn't even finish. Guy over here says, what? You're working on that library for blah, blah, blah? I thought I was doing that. Said, I've been working on that for weeks. You could tell. Table gets real quiet. Maybe this is a good thing.
Yeah.
Maybe. So it was just like that. We got around the whole table, and all of a sudden, for the first time, they really told each other what was going on and discovered either that they could solve each other's problems, or they were working on the same thing, or maybe they were working on two different things to solve the same problem, both spending enormous amounts of time when they should really have had some kind of focused effort. And that was it. It was night and day. It was transformation time. They kind of all stood up and said, okay. And the switch was on,
Yeah.
and they were off. And all of a sudden having to deliver something, a little, didn't have to be a big thing. Got to deliver. When the team manager came back at the end of the month, he came flying over to my cube and he said, I can't believe it. This is not the same team. He said, and the biggest difference is they're hopeful. They think they can do it. So this team had no hope, no idea that they were going in a, he said, now they're together and they know where they're going. And he said, I think they're going to do it. I said, okay. Yeah. Just a simple thing.
Yeah.
I mean, so much of Scrum, like you have to have rules that say, talk to each other. Say what you're doing so that you don't have some guy sitting right next to you who could solve the problem. No,
Yeah.
you're running to all the database guys when here this guy,
Yeah.
he knows how to help you.
It's right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've seen that in various flavors over
Yeah.
and over and over. Just so simple.
It's a great success story.
Yeah.
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 So that was an early one, I guess.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I had to violate the rules a little because you really weren't supposed to talk during retrospective, because there's so many times when you think, oh, I could tell them about this.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Or I could tell them, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that. And if I hadn't, yeah, I don't know. Might not have been good.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that
That's
worked
a
out.
Judgment call. No, but one of the better success stories
Yep.
I think that we've heard so far.
Okay.
Good.
And easy.
Yeah.
And easy. You didn't have to do I mean, I've never done coaching where you go in and live with a team for 6 months or whatever. They're basically smart people. They just needed a few little nudges and
Yeah.
they were good to go.
Yeah. Super.
Well, that's all the questions we have. If you want to.
Yeah.
Okay. Not too hard?